Pillarless doors, smooth lines, ambient lighting, and seats big enough for some serious man-spreading are all things that make a good modern luxury barge, and this Mercedes E-Class Coupe has the lot. This is the most popular version, known as the E220 diesel, and it's a cracking bit of kit. Let me show you around it. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. So, what does E220 stand for? Well, it means this 1.7 tonne coupe has a 2-litre diesel engine, putting out 194 horsepower and a healthy 400 Newton meters of torque. Doesn't sound like much for such a big car, so let's see what it does on the 30 to 70 sprint. Right, we managed 7.21 seconds. So is that fast or slow? Well, it's neither really. Quicker than a BMW 420i, but slower than a C220 with the same engine. Is it enough for everyday driving? Oh, definitely. We'll have to see later if it's enough for a bit of fun though. For now, let's have a look at the inside. Well, this is certainly a nice looking cabin, isn't it? Dual high-resolution 12.3-inch screens, ambient lighting and turbine-style air vents make this 5-year-old car still look like something from the future. This is a premium spec car as well, so there's also a large panoramic roof, reverse camera and memory seats. Talking about seats, what are the ones in the back like? Well, surprisingly, they're actually alright. Coupes, especially ones with this badge, tend to be very cramped in the rear, so it's nice to see there's enough room for adults for once. There's around the same amount of legroom as a Golf, and just enough headroom so that I'm not touching the roof. People over 6 feet will start to feel a tad cramped though. Features wise, there's not really a lot. It's just some very average cup holders and air vents. Since there's room for people back here, I could have at least put an armrest in. Moving back to the boot, this is where the E-Class really impresses. Not only is there a surprising amount of room at 425 litres, there's a surprising amount of features as well. There's bag hooks for your shopping, plenty of nettage, tie-down points, and even some underfloor storage. And even then, in that underfloor storage, you'll find the trademark Mercedes shopping basket, which is actually pretty useful. Fold down the seats and you get enough room for a 70-inch TV, or two, that's right, 2 Christmas trees. Moving beyond the boot, there are these really interesting crystal lights, and at night they actually look pretty cool. Anyway, let's get on the road and see if this thing's any fun. Certainly barge type weather, isn't it? You join me on a typical British summer day, so it's nice to be in something comfortable and quiet like this E-Class. Anyway, what's it like around town? Well, we are riding on the AMG line suspensions, so it's slightly lower than the regular car. And that means going over speed bumps, it just feels slightly more controlled. It doesn't bottom out though, which is pretty good. And the steering is nice and light. Do it with your pinky finger really. Has a nice sense of direction to it. It's quite positive in terms of its feedback. Basically, it wants to turn into a corner, is what I mean. Annoyingly, one of the first things I'm noticing is a bit of creaking coming from this panoramic roof. I think when they run out of lubrication, they start creaking, so that's one thing we are definitely going to have to fix. But anyway, throttle, pedal and brake feel is nice. It's very, very comfortable, this car. There's loads of legroom. It just means getting comfortable is very easy. But of course that legroom does come at a little bit of a cost. This car is a big thing to drive around, especially around town actually. You do notice its size, even over a C-Class. Then in terms of parking, of course it is big, but we do have some pretty good parking aids. We've got a really high resolution reverse camera, and then there's lines telling you where you're going to go, and then you've also got some all-round parking sensors that work fantastically. And yeah, parking is a breeze. We do also have a 180-degree view camera as well. So say you're reversing off your driveway and you can't see in your blind spot, this will basically do that for you. Right, what's this thing like coming out of a junction? I'll give it half throttle. and you just get that 400 newton meters of torque pretty much instantaneously. It's only at 1600 RPM you get that full amount as well. So that, combined with the 9-speed gearbox, make this a very smooth driving experience, regardless of the speed you're going at. Anyway, let's reset the trip so we can see what MPG we can get out of this thing. Online, on Mercedes' website, it says it's going to do 61 to 67 miles per gallon. And in a car that weighs nearly 1700 kilos, I don't think it's going to quite get that, but we'll see. Now, before we get on the motorway, we've got to do the obligatory handling test. So we are going to go into Sports Plus. This will slacken off the traction a little bit, but hopefully if the menu goes away, I can go into the ESP and whack it in Sports. So the steering's sharper, throttle response is sharpened up as well, and the traction's pretty much off. And it's wet, so I can do this. And this is where Mercedes is good. So they will let you have a little bit of fun, but you don't really need any skill, because the ESC will basically just rein things in as soon as the car gets too sideways. It's like a halfway house between an Audi and a BMW. The BMW, you do need to know what you're doing a little bit, whereas the Mercedes, it kind of just goes, yeah, have a little bit of fun, but we'll keep you safe. Anyway, let's go back into Eco and see if we can get that claimed 61 miles per gallon. So coming onto the motorway, this is where you just give it half throttle. And it builds speed in such a nice smooth way, this car. That gearbox really does blend gears together. Brakes are also pretty good, so when you're joining the M25 at 40 miles an hour, you know you can rely on them. I was hoping we were going to get a clear run today, but being a Friday, I don't think that's going to happen, annoyingly. Anyway, what's it like? Well, road noise and wind noise are low. That's even when you're at 70 miles an hour. Don't think we're going to quite manage that today, unfortunately. But the suspension and the steering are also really good. It's a fantastic motorway cruiser, this car. The suspension just slackens off and the steering stays nice and light while still maintaining its direction. And the seats, oh god, the seats are so good. One massive thing for me is you can actually adjust the headrest forwards and backwards as well as up and down, so you do actually get a proper pillow behind your head when you're driving this thing. Plus, of course, you can adjust the pitch of the base, you can recline it, you've got lumbar support, you've got literally everything you could possibly want. Even the little extendable bit under your thighs is controlled electronically in this car. Plus, you have to be going above 70 miles an hour to even get into 9th gear in this thing. It is definitely designed for autobahn cruising, but on British motorways it just feels so well put together. And talking about well put together things, what's the interior quality like? Well, visually it's very good. You've got leather everywhere, door cards, dash, got lovely stitching as well, you've got this really nice fine grain wood, so everything looks good. Unfortunately though, once you start prodding around, there are a couple of creaks. Some Mercedes worse than others. This one isn't too bad, so thankfully you don't get any rattles. The only interior noises I've noticed so far, again, was that panoramic roof, but that's an easy fix. It just needs a bit of grease on it. Other than that, it is pretty good. Then in terms of visibility, what's it like? Well, being a coupe, it's very good. There's also no B-pillars in this car. It's B-pillarless. So you can see in your blind spot really, really easily. It's actually one of the easiest cars to drive on the motorway, this. You've got huge amounts of visibility out the side. Plus, when it's not raining like it is today, you can put the windows down at the sides, and having no B-pillar there just for some reason makes it look really, really cool. It almost makes it look like it should be a concept car. Then, in terms of specs, what would I choose? Well, if I only had 3 options, the first thing I'm going to go for is a Burmester sound system. Now, you do get this as standard in a Premium Plus car, so if you are buying one of these, I would probably try and go with the Plus rather than just the standard Premium, which is what this car is. If you can't though, the standard system is okay. It's not bad. I mean, it's still better than a lot of standard systems in other cars. But the Burmester system, it adds these metal grills here instead of the plastic ones, so it does look quite a lot nicer, really ties the interior together. Plus, you just have really nice clarity of sound. You've got good bass, mids and highs, plus you get the volume. This has the clarity, but it doesn't quite have enough volume to really allow the enjoyment of music for me. Then the next thing is going to be something this car does actually have, and that's the upgraded digital dials. I reviewed a Mercedes E300 Coupe a while ago. I'll put a link to that up there. And that just had the standard dials, and you could tell that Mercedes had deliberately designed those dials to make you upgrade to these screens, because they still have this like rectangular surround, but then they just put regular dials in, and it does look a bit out of place and just a tad weird. So these screens are defo worth the money. Plus they are high resolution as well, they've got good response, they never lag. So yeah, they're definitely worth the upgrade. Then the last thing would actually be their adaptive cruise system. Not a lot of Mercedes have these, and I just feel like in a car like this, you're going to be spending huge amounts of time on the motorway, or at least hopefully you're going to be. And it would just really complete that relaxing driving experience for me. Having normal cruise control is okay, but when you're in traffic like this, it just makes such a massive difference not having to focus on what you're doing so much. But if you're not into the car driving for you, then I would just make sure it's got heated seats instead. They come as standard on the premium car, and they are definitely worth it, as in the UK it does get pretty chilly in winter. Now, whilst we're stuck in traffic, I may as well go through some other features of this car. So, of course, you've got these digital screens, but you do have quite a few different options you can choose from in terms of how it looks and what kind of information it displays. So you've got your trip, your navigation, radio, media, telephone, then the content as well. So on the right hand side of the screen you can change from revs, navigation, eco, consumption, and that's what I was using before. Now I'm using the revs just so you can see how this engine responds to my inputs. Then you've got three different designs. This is probably my least favourite one, but I'm having to use it purely because I need to be able to see my speed. The sport model, the sport mode does look good, but I don't really feel like it suits this particular car. If I was in like an E63S, I feel like it would suit it then. But my favourite mode for this car is the progressive setting. I feel it just looks really clean and nice, minimalistic, and it just doesn't get in the way. But annoyingly, I can't see my speed because of the GoPro, so we are going to have to go back to the classic setting, which looks classy, but you know, not too in your face, not too exciting. One other cool thing you might notice is that my revs are only at 900 RPM at the minute, and that's because we are in something called glide mode. And basically when you're in eco mode, what the car will do is if you're going down a hill, it will disengage the gearbox, so you've effectively got no drag coming from the gearbox on the car, and it allows you to pick up speed going downhill while saving a little bit of fuel. That's our motorway stint over. So what did we do in terms of miles per gallon? Well, we're sitting at 55.3 at the minute, which, whilst it's not the claimed figure, is actually really decent. That's the same as a BMW 220d, and that's quite a lot smaller and lighter, that car. I think the fact this car is really aerodynamic does help quite a lot. Plus that 9-speed gearbox just allows it to sit at a really low RPM, no matter what speed you're going. Plus, we were actually stuck in slow-moving traffic for most of that journey, so it's pretty decent. I reckon you could probably get 64 mpg out of this thing. I mean, look, it's still going up. We're at 56.5 now. So yeah, their claimed figures are genuinely achievable. Colour me impressed. Anyway, I'm going to destroy those figures now and see if we can slide this thing about on a roundabout. Honda NSX, nice. Right. Back into Sports Plus, traction off. I'm actually going to use the flappy paddles. Gearbox responds nicely. See how it handles. Yeah, it will go sideways quite easily. Whee! And even in the wet, you carry quite a lot of pace. You can still go 40 miles an hour around the roundabout. And the thing is, even though this is a big car, it does shrink itself around you quite a lot. These seats really help as well. I can sit nice and low so I feel part of the car, and I can just feel what it's doing. Brake feel is good. It's good in all Mercedes actually. They have a really positive bite to them, and you just feel so reassured that the car's going to stop when you want it to. There's quite a lot of traffic today, so I do have to be a little bit careful. But even going fast, it's very controllable. You can really feel that there's an AMG chassis under there somewhere. I know this is nothing like an E63S, but it's still got a similar feeling to it actually. It's not too far off in terms of just how it goes sideways and how it goes down a road. It's got great turn-in as well. Let's go around once more actually. Since it's wet, we can have a little bit of fun. You can actually hear the brakes grabbing at the rear as well. It's trying to stop me from going sideways. It's crazy though, isn't it, really? I mean, this is an E220D. This is not a sports car, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest. I mean, it almost handles like one. It's not quite as sharp, but there's still plenty of communication through the steering. Yeah, I mean, it's like a computer game, really. People seem to like pulling out in front of each other here. There's a lot of grip though. I mean, we're in the wet, we're riding on Michelin PS4S's, and yeah, foot down around that corner. The ESC is doing quite a lot of work though. I can feel that it's definitely braking the inside wheel. But it's fun at the end of the day. You don't really need to be an experienced driver to have fun. And it's good, you know, you get your fun and you don't end up in a tree. It's just not quite as rewarding, maybe. It's just nice that it's got enough torque to break traction at the rear. Okay then. I have to say, this gearbox responds really nicely. Looks like there's roadworks down here. It's only for this bit, that's alright. Right, let's crack on. One annoying thing is it does seem to shift back into automatic mode quite quickly. Over bumps. Yeah, good. You do notice its size a bit though. There's not as much room in your lane to move about with. Surprising how much fun you can have in this. It's not fast on a B road, but it's enjoyable, yeah. So it's efficient, surprisingly fun, astonishingly comfortable, and genuinely practical. There's really very little not to like about this E-Class, and at £27,000, it's an absolute steal in my mind, especially in today's market. As always, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give it a like, and why not subscribe? As not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale. My name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.